Thank you, Mr. Liu, for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's such an honor, actually.
Oh, thank you so much. Can you tell us a little bit about the piece you're playing today?
Yes, this piece that I am playing is from a set of pieces that Liszt wrote.
Okay.
It's called The Pilgrimage Years. But in this particular set of pieces, there are three little pieces.
Oh, okay.
And I'm doing the very first one called Gondoliera.
What does that mean?
Well, Gondoliera, it's a song that is sung by the person who is steering the boat, gondola in Venice. So basically, gondola, as everybody knows, it's a very special boat that people love to be on when they go on tours in Venice. And Liszt had actually been there and has written these three pieces, and the whole set is called Venezia and Napoli. And so it's about Venice and Naples.
Oh, very beautiful.
Yes.
Now, when we were talking earlier, you mentioned to me that you were actually a studio classroom reader when you were growing up.
Yes, I was. And this is almost going back 40 years ago.
Wow.
When I was in Kaohsiung, where I was born. And this was almost like one of the very, very few magazines and material that was available to me. And I remember my family, of course, wanted me, they thought that I may already be planning to go abroad to study.
So you wanted to improve your English.
I wanted to, of course, yes. And so I remember we had a subscription, and we received it. Every time I remember receiving it, and I would be very excited, and I would be flipping through it. And so it's been, so it's been part of my childhood memory, really.
Wow. And you told me earlier as well that you went to the States at the age of 13.
Yes, I actually left after I finished 8th grade.
Okay.
And I started 9th grade in high school in Philadelphia.
Wow.
I was in Kaohsiung for my grade schools for 6 grades in Taiwan, and then 2 years in Taipei. And I started really rather late with English. So I started when I was 11, when I started really the middle school. So I was actually studying very hard, and I tried to get my hands on any material that I could. So,
wow.
Of course, this magazine was like really has always been with me. Even when I go to the States, actually my mother would send it to me.
Really?
Yes, and then I would once in a while I would flip through it because I would be so surprised. Oh wow, I actually don't know this phrase, and so I would. It was very interesting. Yes.
Well, it sounds like you were a very good student.
I tried. Okay. I tried to be a very good student. I mean, especially in the subject of English, since I was so interested and invested in developing my career abroad. So that was something that I had concentrated on quite a lot. Yeah.
That makes sense. Now, can you tell me, during those few years in your life where you were going through this big transition of moving and you were developing your skills as a pianist, who had a really big influence on you, or who did you feel helped form your character and who you became today during that time?
Well, I would say that there are many important figures in my life that had great influence on me as an artist. And of course, at different stages, they have given me something that's very different. When I was in Kaohsiung, when I was growing up, I was very lucky to be studying with one of the best teachers who really guided me and who really also really recognized my talent, and so really put me to work in some ways. And I really appreciated it. Otherwise, I wouldn't know that I could have developed into this type of career path. then when I came to Taipei, I had another teacher who was also really amazing. His name is Alexander Song, who had studied in Vienna previously and had been an international competition winner and had been on faculty of well-established universities in the United States as well. And then he came back here, and I remember I was one of his very first students.
Oh, wow.
And I just remember how he gave me a lot of ideas about really listening globally to music. And I guess globally in this particular sense is how to learn to be a musician and not just, being like
someone who plays the piano.
Just who plays the piano,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I really also got great influence from him about, really the whole idea about piano playing, about what it means to be an artist. And it was also him who directed me to audition for a really famous school, Curtis Institute of Music, which is in Philadelphia. I mean, I didn't actually know about the school. I mean, I was too young and I was not really aware yet. But he guided me there, and I then, of course, met a lot of really important figures who have been my teachers throughout 8 years, actually, when I studied in Philadelphia.
So how old were you when you started to play the piano? Because you auditioned at 13, correct?
Yes.
So you had to have been taking lessons before then.
Well, I started when I was very young. I mean, again, my memory kind of goes back to when I was a child, and I just would love to climb up the piano bench, and I would just love to make sound. And I think it was because my mother had taught students. She studied music in college, and then she started making her living as a teacher. And so she really just was teaching almost every day. And I would get very jealous. I would be like, they get to play and I don't get to play. And so I would try to, make my statement by going up there and doing whatever. And they didn't really know what to do with me because they'd never seen any kid who was so interested in playing the piano.
Wow.
So at first that they were not quite sure whether they wanted to teach me. But so finally they did send me to this teacher, Meng-Chieh Liu, who was at the time the most experienced teacher in Kaohsiung. But I started when I was very young. I just don't have, probably 2 or 3.
Wow.
I started, just noodling around.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes.
So at what point did you go from just enjoying the piano and noodling around to realizing this is something I want to do as a career?
It's interesting because I think I was probably a very, you would say, not sentimental, but I am very sensitive. I was a very sensitive kid, and I enjoyed actually a lot of artistic activities, and my parents would take me to different concerts in Kaohsiung. And this was, again, 40 years ago when there weren't that many events. A lot of the shows or concerts, they would come to Taiwan, but they would only stop in Taipei.
Sure.
They would not have gone to Kaohsiung, for example. But I remember very clearly when I was 9, my mother took me to a concert, and it was the concert where Viennese, a boys' choir.
Oh, okay.
Yes, they came, and I just was so mesmerized. I was absolutely just kind of enchanted by their angelic voices, and then I remember, seeing blue eyes and blonde hair, and they just looked like angels to me. And I just remember the sound that they made, and they really touched me. And that's probably when I started to realize, I mean, I wish to be something like that when you can bring music and touch people.
So you really started at a very young age to know this is what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I guess I was unique in that way.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
guess not that many kids would have such clear, perhaps, awareness at such an early age. I for some reason, I was quite focused really early on, yeah.
Now, you have had some setbacks and some obstacles during your career, and a lot of our viewers will be familiar with those. Can you tell us what got you through those, or what motivated you to come to the other side of that?
Well, again, I think music is something that is so powerful. I have to credit music as something that really kept me motivated throughout my life, really. There were times, of course, when I was very ill, even when I was in the hospital, when I felt rather hopeless, that I would just, feel like giving up. But somehow the music always, was there to soothe me, to help me through some very difficult decisions and some difficult times. And so I felt it's been very clear to me as well through those experiences that serving music is kind of like a mission of mine. So, I mean, in some ways, I kind of felt like I was, well, I don't really know whether I chose music, but definitely it chose me.
It chose you, wow.
Yes, so.
That's amazing. Okay, so I have another question.
Sure.
What do you think is the best part about being a musician?
Well, I would consider myself very lucky because being a musician is so creative and so rewarding. I feel that in comparing my career with some of my peers, I mean, well, I'm not saying that their job may be boring, but it seems like a lot of times they're also doing very repetitive stuff, like an accountant or.
Sure.
Well, I mean, of course, many people wanted to. I mean, back 40 years, people, their most desired career path may be in law or maybe in
Medicine.
Yes, but I just find that wow, those are just so tiring. So it's so exhausting.
Yeah.
I mean, being an artist is, of course, it has its moment of being tired out, at the end of the day or at the end of a performance. But somehow there is some feeling of fulfillment that is really wonderful. And so, I mean, I just consider myself lucky because, maybe people would say, you're making a living doing something that you like.
Oh, yeah.
And that's I always really felt that.
So what's the worst part about being a musician?
What's the worst part? Well, the worst part, I said something about being repetitive. Of course, this is, I don't think it's the worst part, but for many people, for many musicians, it may be, let's say, practice.
Sure.
It may be, you have to put in the daily practice. But for me, I don't know, it's just, it's a wonderful, practice. The way I use this practice is almost as if like I challenge myself to be myself. I have time to be creative, and I have time to not necessarily do what everybody else is doing, and I have a moment for myself. I almost call it a Zen moment, and every day I have that to myself. So, I mean, to me, it's not boring, but it could be pretty bad if you don't know how to enjoy it. If you don't know how to enjoy that process, I think that can be rather frustrating.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's end by asking you, what is some advice you can give to aspiring musicians, students who may want to make music their whole career or maybe want to go abroad to study? What's some advice you can give to them?
Well, I would advise the young aspiring musicians to really believe in their dreams and stay true to themselves. It's a chaotic world out there, and of course we have a lot of distractions from many directions. I think it's really important to look inward, and especially in today's world. And I often, in my case, I use my music to try to give examples of what it is like when we are playing music. And it is an opportunity to look inward into our soul or into our thinking. And that's actually a moment when we really know, we really have some kind of an instinct to guide us. And that is very important. And I think for young people today, even more so than 20 years ago, there are so many gadgets and so many different things. They would really need to be, I would say, focused. They would need to focus in order for them to really get somewhere. I think it feels as if it's more and more difficult to become anything good in any profession these days. I feel like it takes so much concentration and takes so much work. But I think the most important is if someone has passion, I think that's really, they really need to really pursue their dream.
Well, it's very clear as you are playing that you have so much passion as you play. And we just thank you so much for coming and playing with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.